You had any class prior to this, or you had no class today? Hello? Did you have? সেটা কি অনেকটা আগে হয়েছে, মানে can I start right now or sorry about it. So you can start right now, okay? So what you have studied prior to this is একটু পরে পরে করলেও হবে। Is there certain cases where there may be a number of materials which may remain parallel to each other, so that they offer a series of thermal resistances which are in series. Now, there may be a few cases where resistances also may be in parallel, and such that the situation can be like this. And here the situation that is shown is one of a series with a parallel. There is a parallel path. Suppose this wall is at T1, the other side of the wall is at T2, and there are four different materials E, F, G, and H. They have different conductivities Ke, Kf, Kg, and Kh. And this layer has a thickness Le, and the in-between layer has a thickness of Lf equal to Lg. Both have the same thickness, and the other side has a thickness of LH. So I will not cover this thing. I'll just give you try to give you an example where it can happen. Can somebody tell where this type of situation can be there? This type of situation can be there if you see the brick cement structure of any wall. There are bricks, and in between bricks you have a cement layer, something like that. So there is a possibility that the heat can flow through brick as well as the cement layer that is in between two consecutive bricks, one above the other. That type of situation can be there. And the equivalent circuit is you have a resistance Le, the thickness by conductivity into area of this wall. Where area of this wall or the cross-sectional area of this wall is A. And if we have two layers, then here these two layers, they will offer resistances in parallel given by the upper resistance given by Lf divided by Kf into A by 2. If the layers are half and half, it is A by 2. And similarly, the bottom part of this in between sandwich layer that offers a resistance given by Lg happens to be Lf equal to Lg divided by Kg, the conductivity of the in-between material, into A by 2. Then you can have another resistance in series, and you can solve this applying your electrical knowledge, analogy. It may be like this, it may be you can draw an equivalent between these two, and then you can have that equivalent in series with this resistance, equivalent resistance, and this resistance. There may be another way as we have shown over here. Now I'll come back to this thing. I'm going to start a new thing there, that is heat conduction through a cylindrical body. Now we are going to discuss the heat conduction through cylindrical geometries. A very common example of a cylindrical geometry can be a hollow pipe or simply a pipe. This can be an example of a hollow cylinder. Inside the pipe you may have, say, water is boiling in the case of a water boiler. Hello? Hello?
ইলেকট্রিক ওয়্যারও হবে তো
হ্যাঁ,
ইলেকট্রিক ওয়্যার এর এক্সাম্পল এই হলো সিলিন্ডার।
a better example can be, say, if you take a pipe in a boiler, In the case of boiler, particularly water tube boiler, you have water inside the pipe, and the pipe is surrounded by a hot flue gas. The flue gas is the gas that is produced because of burning of air and fuel. So when you burn air and fuel, they produce something that is known as flue gas. It is a high temperature. And inside, if there is water is flowing, then gradually that water will pick up heat, so it will become saturated water, and it will start to convert into steam. So that is an example of a water tube boiler. In the case of a fire tube boiler, the smoke or the fire or the flue gas that remains inside, and the pipe is immersed in a water reservoir. In that case of a fire tube boiler, the fire or the flue gas is inside. In the case of a water tube boiler, the water is inside the pipe. So depending on the passages of the water and the flue gas, we call it a water tube boiler when the water is inside the tube, or we call it a fire tube boiler when the smoke or the fire or the flue gas is inside the tube. This is an example for a hollow cylinder. There may be a solid cylinder, like in the case of a billet is being prepared in a steel plant. Cylindrical billets may be prepared, cylindrical rods may be prepared. They may be used in construction industries or some other purpose. What you are saying is also an example. Suppose you have a electrical conductor that is, normally the electrical conductor will be a solid one. We can assume that inside there is an electrical conductor and surrounding it is a insulating layer. So that is again an example of a composite cylindrical geometry. Inside you have the solid conductor, and outside it may have a what you call insulator that is used to prevent the thermal shock in case somebody touches it. So these are examples of cylindrical geometries. Now we are going to discuss the same type of thing as we have done in a plane wall. Again, here what we assume is that the plane wall in this example, it is the cylindrical wall. It has an inner surface that is heated to a temperature T1, and it has an outer surface which is uniformly heated to a temperature T2. And if the length of the cylinder is quite high, then what we can expect is that if internally the internal surface is throughout maintained at temperature T1 and outer surface is throughout maintained at temperature T2, the whole curved surface, then what we can expect is the heat will flow in the radial direction, and the heat will not mostly flow along the axial direction or in the circumferential direction. It will be here flowing only in the radial direction, except at the edges. At the edge, there may be some heat flow from the edge to the surrounding, and there may be a local change in temperature along the z direction only at the edges. But except the edges, throughout the length, it is essentially the temperature will vary only along the radial direction, such that heat will be flowing only along the radial direction. And if it is maintained, the inner surface is maintained constantly at T1, which may be assumed as a fixed temperature independent of time, and simultaneously the outer surface, the outer curved surface is maintained at a temperature, constant temperature of T2, which does not change with time, then we may expect that the whole body, the temperature at any point inside this hollow cylinder, the temperature at any point will not change with time. So the whole phenomenon will be time independent. So that it is an example, it can be an example of a steady state heat transfer only along the radial direction. So again, we can say this as an example of a one directional steady state heat conduction in a cylindrical geometry. Now to solve this problem, what will be convenient is to take help of the appropriate governing equation in the cylindrical coordinate system. This thing I remember I told you to derive.
Yes,
you
sir.
may have conveniently forgotten that thing, to do that thing. And the full governing equation is given like this. And this is a more or less a generalized equation in 3-dimension unsteady state heat conduction, except one simplification that the conductivity is constant. That's why it can be brought out of these derivatives. And also this conductivity is independent of the direction. So this equation assumes that the heat conduction equation, it assumes that the conductivity is constant and isotropic consisting of the isotropic material. And otherwise, this is a 3-dimensional equation. This takes care of the radial temperature variation along the radial direction. This takes care of the temperature variation along the circumferential direction. And Z stands for the axial direction, which is taken care of by this term. If there is a temperature variation along the axial direction, then this term takes care of this thing, the temperature variation. And this, as you have already come across, is the volumetric heat generation term, which is the rate of heat generation per unit volume. And this term is the unsteady state term or the transient term, which takes care of a heat transfer phenomenon if the heat transfer phenomenon and that corresponding temperature distribution within the body changes with time. If the case is such that the temperature does not change with time, temperature everywhere does not change with time, so does the heat transfer does not change with time. In that case, we can consider as a steady state problem, and we can drop this term because this term will become equal to 0. And when this will happen, when we maintain this type of a situation or this geometry, that inside temperature is constantly maintained at T1, outside surface temperature is constantly maintained at temperature T2, and T1 is different from T2. If T1 is greater than T2, then heat will flow in the radial outward direction. If T2 is greater than T1, the heat will flow in the inward direction radially. Now, if T1 and T2, they are constant with respect to time for a long period of time, then we can expect no point inside the body will have a variation of temperature with time. So then it will represent a steady state problem such that we can neglect this term. And if we maintain the entire extent of the internal curved surface constant and uniformly heated to T1, and simultaneously if this T2 is maintained uniformly with a uniform value throughout the outer curved surface, then we should not expect any temperature variation along the phi direction, circumferential direction, at any other radial distance, at any other radial position. Temperature will not change with phi, because what is governing this thing, what is driving this heat transfer part, the temperature distribution part, they themselves are independent of phi. And moreover, because the primary temperature differential remains across the radial direction, we should not expect any temperature variation along the z direction, except what will happen, even if it is a long cylinder such that L is much greater than the radial thickness, then what we can expect, z-wise flow will be very small compared to the radial direction heat flow. And except the fact that if this is heated compared to the temperature of the surrounding, then we can expect some heat to come out from the end surface to the outside surrounding. And for the heat to come out from the body, inside the body there must be some temperature gradient along the z direction. So there will be some amount of del T del Z at the edges, at the front edge and at the back edge. But that part, that variation of temperature will not be visible in the rest part of the body. So except at the near edges, this temperature will not vary along Z. These are called boundary effects. So if you neglect the boundary effects, if the area is very large compared to the values of R1 minus R2 minus R1, we may expect that the major part of the length will remain uniformly heated at any radial position along the length of this cylinder. T will not change with Z so long as R remains fixed. So if we take 2 points along Z at the same R, we can expect the temperature of those 2 points will remain the same. It will not change along Z. And if there is no internal heat generation, we can neglect this part. If there is no variation of T along Z at any Z, then this term also will be absent. And because of this T1 remaining uniform at the interior surface, T2 remaining uniform at the outer surface, so you should not expect any temperature variation along phi. So this also will be absent. So the equation will be simplifying to, then what will happen is that this term is 0, this term is 0, the source term is 0, the unsteady term is 0. So the whole thing becomes ddr of R dt dr is equal to 0. Then the equation will simplify to, because in this case, what will happen, T is, in this particular case, T is no more a function of phi, z and time. It is only a function of R. So the derivative will be an ordinary differential. So the equation will turn out to be ddr of R dt dr is equal to 0. This R also, if you multiply both sides by R, it goes out. So the equation becomes ddr of R dt dr is equal to 0. And this will be valid in the region of R that is greater than R1, the inner radius, and R2, the outer radius. The whole equation will be valid inside the domain except on the boundaries at R is equal to R1 and R is equal to R2. This is what we have tried to say, that del T del Z will be 0 for a very long cylinder, and circumferential uniformity will be there. So this will go for steady state, temperature term will go, a time wise variation of temperature will vanish. And this will simplify to, this will no more be, this will no more be, this will be ddr of, this will not be partial derivative, it will be d. It's a gross mistake. And what is the significance of this thing? Can somebody tell that if I see this equation, what does it indicate? This also will go out, na? 1 by R. So it will go out, it will simply become equal to, multiply both sides by R, it becomes equal to ddr of R dt dr equal to 0. What does it signify?
R dt dr is constant.
It signifies that R dt dr is constant. And that also signifies that the dt dr, hello?
নিচেও তো ওটা dt dr হবে যে del t del.
হ্যাঁ, সর্বত্র ভুল আছে, ওগুলো আস্তে আস্তে করতে করতে যাবে। Now, if we see this thing, then R dt dr is equal to constant. So one thing that we see here is that dt dr is not constant. dt dr is inversely proportional to R. So the larger the value of R becomes, as we go out from towards the center, as we go outward, the dt dr value will decrease. And as we approach towards the center, as we come closer to the center where R becomes smaller, dt dr becomes larger. So at larger value of R, dt dr is gradually decreasing inversely with R, and at lower values of R, dt dr will be increasing. So we can say what will be the nature of this thing. The solution will be one where it will be varying inversely with R. dt dr will be varying with R, 1 upon R. And this we can solve again with the, because it is second order ordinary differential equation. We can solve this equation by substituting the two boundary conditions T equal to T1 at R is equal to R1 and T equal to T2 at R is equal to R2. So as we have already discussed, It will be also RDTDR will be constant. And we can say DTDR will be C1 by R, the constant by R. And if we integrate this once again, we get the solution for T is equal to C1 natural log of R plus C2. And we can substitute these two boundary conditions, that is T equal to T1 at R is equal to R1 and T equal to T2 at R is equal to R2. So it becomes T1 is equal to C1 log of R1 plus C2 and T2 becomes equal to C1 log of R2 plus C2. We can find out C1 by subtracting one from the other. So what we get is C1 will be equal to minus of T1 minus T2 by log of R2 by R1. I have written it like this with the deliberate intention that we have to assume one of the values of either of the values of T1 and T2 as larger in comparison to the other. What we are assuming here is that, let us say the internal surface temperature is larger, is heated compared to the outer surface temperature. So T1 is greater than T2. So what will happen, because T1 is greater than T2, so this will be positive. And because R2 is greater than R1, R2 is the outer radius and R1 is the inner radius, so R2 is greater than R1, so R2 by R1 will be greater than 1, so log of this thing will be a positive quantity. So as a whole, this C1 will be a negative quantity because minus of some positive by positive. So this slope becomes, you see, not the slope, this DTDR will become C1 by R. So because C1 is a negative quantity, so DTDR will be decreasing. That is also expected from the second law, that if you have an internal, what you call, hot surface and outside surface is colder, so as you move outward, your temperature will decrease, so DTDR will be a negative thing, and this is a mathematical corroboration of that thing. And we can find out T2 by, we can find out C2. How to find out, C1, if we have found out by just subtracting one from the other. And if we multiply this, both sides, if we multiply with log of R2, and if we multiply both sides of this equation by log of R1, and then if we subtract, then you can find out the value, then this C1 will cancel and C2 we can find it out. So what will be the thing? What I am telling is that if you multiply both sides of this equation by log of R2, so it becomes T1 log of R2 minus T2 log of R1. Multiply this sides, this equation, both sides by log of R2, this equation by log of R1, and then subtract the second one from the first one, it becomes T1 log of R2 minus T2 log of R1 divided by, what it will happen is, this will cancel out because here we have log of R1 into log of R2, here also you have log of R2 into log of R1, so C1 term will cancel, and what will remain here is that C2 into log of R2 minus C2 into log of R1, so it becomes log of R2 by R1, so C2 becomes equal to this entire thing by log of R2 by R1. Now, if we see this thing, so if we substitute this thing, then we get the temperature, solution for temperature. What is the solution for temperature? That is T is equal to C2. This is the C2 part, equal to C2 plus C1 log of R. This second part is the C1 part, which is minus of T1 minus T2 log of R2 by R1 log of R. Okay, and this is the C2 part. So this is the solution for temperature distribution. But this is not our quantity of interest. We are interested to find out what is the heat transfer rate from the cylinder from inside of the cylinder to the outside. Our main interest in heat transfer study is to find out the rate of heat transfer for this type of a cylinder having an internal surface heated to a temperature T1, outer surface heated to a temperature T2, and the internal radius is R1, outer radius is R2, the length of the cylinder is L, and the material has a conductivity K. If you notice here, the solution for temperature doesn't have any term containing the conductivity. So it is independent of the conductivity. So long as the solution for temperature, if you see, it contains the inner surface temperature, the outer surface temperature, the inner radius, the outer radius, and nothing else. And it is a function of radius in a particular way, in a logarithmic way. The T varies with R, and where capital T1, the inner surface temperature, T2, the outer surface temperature, the inner radius R1, and the outer radius R2, they appear as parameter in this solution. So T is the dependent variable that depends on the independent variable small r, the radial distance, and T1, T2, R1, R2, they appear as parameters. And the solution does not contain anything other than the boundary condition temperatures and the geometric distance of the boundaries from the center. But when we find out the heat transfer rate, this is what we are not primarily interested in some case. Primarily we should be interested about the heat transfer rate from the cylinder. And what is that? How to find out the heat transfer rate? Again, if we apply the Fourier's law of heat conduction, it is given by Q dot is equal to minus K into A into dTdr. Now this dTdr we should take where? Question is, dTdr is changing with R. dTdr at which radial distance? dTdr where? That is a question. If you see, we have an inner surface that is heated and we have an outer surface that is comparatively colder. And because of this temperature difference between the inner to the outer surface, there will be a steady rate of heat transfer from the inner surface to the outer surface. Now, if it is to maintain at a steady state condition, then, and because simultaneously heat is coming out from the inner to the outer surface, so if we want to maintain this surface constant at T1, we have to continuously supply heat from some source to the inner surface. The heat has to be fed continuously to the inner surface, which ultimately will travel through the thickness of the pipe. And because again, T2 is to be maintained continuously at a constant temperature T2, so the heat which is arriving from the inner surface to the outer surface, the same rate of heat is to be taken out. So what we can see here is that if you take any radial distance and if you draw an imaginary cylinder taking any radial distance, the same rate of heat has to flow through each of these imaginary cylinders at different values of R. Because the same heat has to flow, from the inner surface to the outer surface, same rate of heat transfer has to flow, and that does not change with radius. So the Q dot has to be constant with respect to radius. Whatever the Q dot that is entering through this surface, the same amount of Q dot, the heat transfer rate, has to come out from the surface. Otherwise, what will happen? If you are supplying more heat at the inner surface and you are extracting less heat from the outer surface, then the body will store heat. And then the body will store energy. The balance amount of heat will be stored as stored energy. And as it goes on storing energy, the temperature will rise. Now, fact that we are studying a steady state problem, that means the energy content of the body is not changing with time. So the rate of heat that it is receiving from the inner surface, the same rate of heat has to come out from the outer surface. Not only it is true for the inner and outer surface, at any imaginary cylinder maintained at any R in between R1 and R2, this is true, that the heat will be flowing radially outward at the same constant rate. So the rate of Q dot will be remaining constant with respect to R in this particular example. The Q dot will not change with R. It will be independent of R. And if you see this thing, what we have said is that if you see this DTDR, what we have discussed here is that DTDR has to be, what we have seen, it will be a function of inversely proportional to R. No? Because we have seen that R DTDR is equal to constant. R DTDR has to be constant. If you see, if you take any radial curved surface, if you take any imaginary curved surface centered along the around the center line of the cylinder, hollow cylinder, and it is situated at a radial distance r, then the surface area of that imaginary cylinder will be 2 pi r into L. And if we take the DTDR, so minus Ka DTDR, at which r, wherever we are taking the surface area, at the same r, we have to take the DTDR. We can take it at any arbitrary r between r1 and r2, and at the same radial distance, we have to take the derivative. And as we see, r into DTDR, that we have already seen, r into DTDR is constant. Also, k is a constant, pi is a constant, L is a constant. So what we see is that the whole thing as a whole, it will become constant. Okay, so this is also a corroboration. You think in this line that not only you go on solving some problem, derive something, mathematically solve the problem without thinking, because mathematical equations are nothing but a mathematical description of the physics that is occurring. So these equations, they tell a lot of physics, that you should try to always make a habit of thinking in that line. Now what we see is that we can write this heat transfer rate as equal to minus K into 2 pi RL, that is the surface area of the curved imaginary cylinder situated at a radial distance of R having a length L. So 2 pi RL into DTDR equal to C1 by R. So this R and this R, they will cancel. So it will become a constant, K into 2 pi L into C1. Now in temperature, we don't have any presence of conductivity, but as soon as we come to the rate of heat transfer, what you see is that this term, the conductivity term, appears. So it becomes minus 2 pi KL into, if we substitute the value of C1, which is also a negative. Now you see also another significance of this negative gradient, because the heat has to flow in the positive outward direction. So only way this can be positive is that this is a negative quantity. Heat flows in the negative direction of temperature gradient. So temperature gradient is negative. You have to have a prefixation of another negative sign, so that these two negative will make the thing positive. And if you just put these values of C1 by R has already cancelled. 2 pi R, this R and R cancels. It is C1. So it becomes equal to T1 minus T2 into 1 by 2 pi KL log of R2 by R1. Now this we can write it as equal to delta T. T1 by minus T2 is the temperature difference, which is the cause of this heat transfer. This is the potential difference for this heat flow, divided by this thing that's called the conductive resistance. Now if you see conductive resistance for a cylindrical geometry, it will be, just try to remember, it will be equal to 1 by 2 pi KL into log of R2 outer radius by inner radius. If you have a hollow cylinder, then the conductive resistance will be equal to 1 by 2 pi KL into log of R outer divided by R inner. We can simplify this thing further. What I have done is that I have multiplied the numerator with R2 minus R1, the denominator with R2 minus R1. Okay, I have multiplied the numerator with R2 minus R1, also the denominator with R2 minus R1, and brought this log of R2 by R1 and the over here. Now if you see this R2 minus R1 that I have multiplied the numerator with, that is not, that represents the thickness of the wall. A small t with subscript wall indicates the thickness of the wall. Okay, and you see k into 2 pi R2 into L, 2 pi R2 into L minus 2 pi R1 into L. Now 2 pi R2 into L stands for the outer surface area, outer curved surface area indicated by A2, minus 2 pi R1 into L is the inner curved surface area A1. So it becomes k into A2 minus A1, and again it is log of R2 minus R1 divided by R1. If we multiply this with 2 pi L into R2, here also if I multiply 2 pi L into R1, then it becomes A2 by A1. So what I see is that this conductive resistance will be equal to the thickness of the wall divided by k into A2 minus A1, the outer surface area minus the inner surface area, divided by the log of the ratio of the outer surface area minus inner surface area. Now if you see this thing, I can define this as T wall divided by K into, this is nothing, this has a dimension of area. This term A2 minus A1 divided by log of A2 by A1. This A2 by A1 is a dimensionless number. Log of that, this type of transcendental functions, logarithmic function, the trigonometric function, they operate on numbers. So this log of on a number is internal number. So what we have is the dimension of area divided by some number. So it represents some kind of an area. That area is called the log mean area. The log mean area is defined as, if you, because here what is happening, if you see in the case of a plane wall, if you compare this with a plane wall, and if you remember, the conductive resistance for a plane wall was thickness of the wall divided by k into area of the wall. And that area means the cross-sectional area of the wall, that is the depth of the wall multiplied by the height of the wall. Here, what is happening, because the wall is not a plane wall. So in the case of a plane wall, the left side area, the right side area, and if you take any layer in between the left surface and the right hand surface, if you take any number of layers, they all will have the same area. That's why it is called a plane wall, where the area is not changing. But if you see the case of a hollow cylinder, the area is continuously changing with radius. So the area is given by 2 pi r into L. So the area is continuously changing as a function of r. So now the question is, we can define an appropriate mean area. That mean area that we define here is called the log mean area, given by the outer area minus the inner area divided by log of outer area by inner area. So just to make a similarity between the plane wall expression and this expression for conductive resistance for a curved wall like a cylindrical wall, I have tried to rewrite it in that identical fashion. In the case of a plane wall, the conductive resistance is given by the thickness of the wall divided by conductivity into the cross-sectional area of the wall given by the depth of the wall into the height of the wall for a plane wall. But the case of a cylindrical wall, we write the conductive resistance in an identical fashion given by the same thickness of the wall divided by conductivity and an appropriate log mean area. Because here the area is continuously changing, so we have to appropriately take some kind of a mean area given by a particular expression known as log mean area given by the outer area minus inner area divided by log of outer area by inner area. Now, let me take some 5 minutes break.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And if you have any question, you can ask in between. The resistance has a similar type of nature, that resistance will be more when the thickness of the wall increases, and resistance will be less when the cross-sectional area through which the heat is flowing. The area through which the heat is flowing, called the cross-sectional area, in the case of plane wall, if you remember, that was on the denominator. So the larger the cross-sectional area of the wall, the less is the resistance. And the larger the conductivity, the less is the resistance. And larger the thickness, the more is the resistance. So the resistance increases with thickness and decreases with conductivity, increase of conductivity and increase of cross-sectionality. It is something similar to that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Now, just as in the previous case, we are now going to a somewhat more generalized thing, that again, as we have said in the case of plane wall, we cannot so easily measure the inside temperature, outside temperature. Because normally what we measure is not the surface temperature, but the fluid free steam temperature. So now we take a case where we do not know the surface temperature, which we have indicated as TS1. The TS1 is the surface temperature corresponding to the inner radius R1, and TS2 is the surface temperature corresponding to the radius at the outer surface given by R2. Now, these temperatures TS1 and TS2, they are not known. Rather, what we know is that through inside of this hollow cylinder, a hot fluid is flowing whose free steam temperature is given by T infinity 1, and there is a convection coefficient given by H1. And similarly, outside this, there is a cold stream of fluid that is maintained, that has a free steam temperature of T infinity 2, and the corresponding convection coefficient is given by H2. In general, H1 and H2, they will be different, as we have discussed, because the situation inside and outside, they are totally different. They may be occupied by two different fluids of two different chemical specimens. So all these things will make the value of H1 different from H2. H1 is different from H2, and you have inside you have a hot fluid, outside you have a cold fluid. So what will happen? The hot fluid will tend to leave the heat to the outside. The heat from the hot fluid will continuously flow to the cold fluid at the outside. There will be a steady rate of heat flow from the hot fluid to the cold fluid. And again, we want to know what is the heat transfer rate from the hot fluid to the cold fluid. And here what we assume is that although the fluid is flowing, so what will happen, because the heat is being given by the fluid, what will happen is that because of heat flow, normally the temperature T infinity 1 will change with Z. It will decrease with Z. And also, if you see, the temperature of the cold fluid is expected to rise with Z. T infinity 2 is expected to also change with Z. Only thing, T infinity 1 will be decreasing with Z, and T infinity 2 will increase with Z, because there is a continuous exchange from the hot fluid to the cold fluid. And if it is so, then what will happen? Then we can expect the temperature is to change also with Z. Temperature in the thickness of the wall, it will now change with Z. If T infinity 1 is a function of Z, T infinity 2 is a function of Z, then thickness in the thickness of the wall also, the temperature will be changing with Z. But that will again become a more complicated case. Let us take a case where there is only one directional heat conduction, such that T inside the wall is changing only along R. And this will be possible if T infinity 1 is not changing with Z, T infinity 2 is not changing with Z. Now when it can happen, suppose you have a situation where the hot fluid is undergoing a phase change and the cold fluid is also undergoing some kind of a phase change. For example, maybe the hot fluid is a vapor that is condensing, so that it is giving its heat to the cold fluid. And as it is condensing, so what will happen is that during condensation, the temperature of this hot fluid will not change. And simultaneously, if the cold fluid is a boiling fluid, and why it is boiling? Because it is receiving heat from the inside hot fluid. So this is boiling, and during this boiling phenomenon, it is boiling throughout the length, then it will not change with J. So you can always think of situation where T infinity 1 and T infinity 2, they do not change along J. They remain constant with respect to J, even though they are exchanging heat continuously from between the hot fluid and cold fluid. But if both fluids are undergoing some kind of phase change, then there will be no change of temperature, free stream temperatures along Z direction. We take one such situation where T infinity 1 is constant throughout the length and T infinity 2 is also constant throughout the length. And so what will happen, again we can expect a situation where the T, the temperature variation across the thickness of the pipe, it will change only along R. It will not change along Z. It will not change along the circumferential direction given by pipe. Again, it will be a case of one-dimensional radial steady-state heat conduction. Now, only difference between the previous case and this case is that, hello?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, ওই এক্সচেঞ্জের ব্যাপারটা একটুখানি বলবেন যে ওটা কিভাবে মানে এটা বুঝতে পারলাম।
ফেস চেঞ্জ মানে যদি এমন হয় ভেতরে ফ্লুইডটা ধরো কনডেন্স করছে, ধরো ভেতরে there is a steam that is condensing at 100 degrees centigrade, then what will happen? Its temperature will change or not? There is inside the steam is going through the pipe and outside you have a refrigerant. Then what will happen? Then when the steam is at a higher temperature, say 100 degrees centigrade, outside the refrigerant may be say at minus some temperature. So there will be a continuous heat exchange between the inside fluid and the outside fluid. The heat will be leaving out of the steam. So what we can expect the steam to have is a gradual condensation. Steam ta jodi heat lose korte thake, then there will be a condensation, progressive condensation as the steam is flowing through the pipe. And during this condensation, can we expect a drop in temperature of the fluid? That the temperature will remain constant or it will fall?
Constant.
So that is an example I am saying how it is exchanging heat, still its temperature can remain constant. One way can be this. Similarly, when this is boiling refrigerant, even though it is receiving heat, if you have a mixture of liquid and vapor, then what will happen? Its temperature will not change. Only thing, more and more liquid will become vapor. Again, T infinity 2 can be thought to be constant, even though continuously it is receiving heat from the inside fluid, which is hotter. That is the example I am talking about. Okay.
Okay.
Now, for the time being, what we know is this value, the T infinity 1 and T infinity 2, and we do not know TS1 and TS2. Where TS1 is the surface temperature of the inside curved surface of the pipe, and outside surface temperature of the pipe is given by TS2. and TS2 is constant throughout the curve, this circumference, and constant throughout the length, and TS1 is also constant at any value of phi and at any value of z. Now, if we consider, we do not know what is the value of TS1 and TS2, but we can write that Q dot, the heat transfer rate, will be equal to, if we have an inside fluid that is at a temperature T infinity 1, and if the inside surface temperature is TS1, then the heat flow rate from the fluid to the surface, inside surface, will be given by H1 into area into delta T between the free stream temperature and the surface temperature. The heat is going from the free stream, from the fluid to the surface, and the rate of heat transfer will be proportional to the temperature difference given by T infinity 1 minus TS1, and the constant of proportionality will be is H into A, H at the appropriate H at the inner surface and the inner surface area H1. Now we could have found out this heat transfer rate simply by using this equation if we know the value of TS1, but unfortunately we do not know what is the value of TS1. We know only the value of T infinity 1. Momentarily we do not know the value of TS1. And for the given values of TS1 minus TS2, we know the heat transfer rate will be same, because why this heat transfer from the inside fluid to the wall will be equal to the heat transfer that is flowing through across the thickness of the wall, and that will be equal to the heat transfer from the outer surface to the outside fluid given by this thing. And the heat flowing through the thickness of the wall is through conduction. It will be equal to the surface temperature difference between the inside surface minus outside surface divided by 1 by 2 pi KL into log of outer radius by inner radius. Now here what you see is that TS1 is not known, so we cannot find out this thing. TS1, TS2 are not known, we cannot find out this thing. TS2 is not known, so we cannot find out this thing. But we can also write this as equal to, just in the similar way, we can write this as equal to T infinity 1 minus TS1 divided by 1 upon H1 A1. TS1 minus TS2 divided by something. Here also you can write TS2 minus T infinity 2 divided by 1 by H2 into A2. You can write it as equal to this temperature drop from the inside fluid to the surface divided by something that we call it as the convective resistance offered by the inside fluid, is the conductive resistance offered by the thickness of the wall. Similarly, this 1 by H2 A2 is the convective resistance offered by the outside fluid, and is the ratio of the temperatures divided by the corresponding, the temperature drops by the corresponding resistances. The temperature drop by the resistance gives you the heat transfer rate. It will be proportional to the temperature drop in the other region divided by the resistance, temperature drop by the resistance. And you can add up all these three. So what will happen after addition? This will cancel with this term will cancel with this. What will remain is T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2 divided by the total resistance given by the inside convective resistance plus the wall resistance plus the outside convective resistance, which we can call it as the total resistance. Inside convective resistance, the outside convective resistance, and the wall conductive resistance. The total resistance, which is on the denominator and numerator, you have the overall temperature drop given by T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2, which is the overall temperature drop by the overall resistance, or you can take a local temperature drop by the local resistance. Now, local temperature drop we cannot find out, but the overall temperature drop between T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2 is known, and we always know what is the value of the total resistance. So from there you can find out the heat transfer rate. Let it be up to this point. We'll continue in the next class.
Yes, sir.
If you have some question, otherwise I'll make the attendance roll call and then. Roll 50, Rishabh. Rishabh, roll 50. Vishnu, roll 51.
Present, sir.
52, Abhishek.
Present, sir.
53, Sahil.
Present, sir.
56, Souvik Chaudhary.
Sir, he is present.
He is present. 59, Kaustubh.
Sir, Kaustubh is present.
60, Somnath.
Present, sir.
61, Ashutosh.
Present, sir.